Hey, it's Grady at Twin Creek Audio, and today I have the Alto Averb 2, which is a little reverb multi-effects processor, and the A in this case is the lowercase Greek letter alpha, so I'm not sure if this is supposed to be an Averb 2 or an alpha verb 2, but I'm going to call it Averb because it doesn't say alpha, it's not spelled out. It's a pretty neat, inexpensive little effects processor. It has a foot switch jack on the back, and this one had some Velcro on the bottom, so someone was presumably using this for a live performance reverb. It has stereo inputs and outputs, and it uses a 9-volt AC power supply. So that's something to know if you happen to pick up one of these little Alpha Averb 2s or the original Averb, as I believe both of those units use a 9-volt AC power supply. I bought this one off of eBay or Reverb, I can't remember because I've had it for a few months, and it came with a 9-volt DC power supply and wouldn't work. It would light up, the power light would come on, but the unit wouldn't work. So I bought a 9-volt AC power supply, and it works perfectly with that. So the correct power supply for one of these is a 9-volt AC power supply. It's got a lot of cool effects and combinations on it for something so small and inexpensive. So let me do some close-ups and show you the details, and then I'll connect it to the console and try it out on some different sources. On the front panel of the Alto Averb 2 40-bit digital effects module, you've got the input level, mix knob, which is your wet-dry blend, and the output level. And then you've got, we're going to start from the bottom down here, Hall 1, 2, 3, Spring 1, Spring 2, Tape, which is a tape delay sound, Plate 1, Plate 2, at the top, Tremolo, then Chorus, Flange, Delay, Delay Reverb combination, a Flange Reverb combination, a Chorus Reverb combination, which is probably my favorite, and Rotary. And then you've got 16 variations from 1 to 16 here on the variations control. On the back, the inputs are here and the outputs are here. You've got a stereo left and right input, with the left input being the mono input, and then your left and right outputs here. This is bypass. This jack is for a foot switch that will bypass this, and then you have the 9-volt AC power connection right here. I believe these are all unbalanced inputs and outputs on this unit. And what I'm going to do is connect this to my console's patch bay, so I can just connect this straight to the patch bay so we can try it out for some examples. I've set up the Alto Averb 2 over here just on top of this rack, and I used 3 of these 1/4" to TT cables to connect this unit straight to my patch bay on the console. I don't always put all of the gear in the rack and solder connections to the big patch bay here. If clients bring something in, or I want to demonstrate something for a video, it's easier to use one of these cables and just patch it directly into the console patch bay. In this case, I'm taking an auxiliary send out of the console. That's coming to the left mono input on the Averb 2, and then the stereo outputs are going back into the patch bay onto a stereo channel, which you can see over here. I've got the widest angle lens I could use for this, so you can see the fader over here with this reverb on it, and some of the other things. This is a guitar, some strings, and some vocals that I'm going to play through it. The manual for this is a little strange. I will put a link to the manual at the end of this video. In the manual, it makes reference to a power switch to turn it on, and this doesn't have a power switch that I can find. There's a few other strange things in the manual that don't seem to make sense, but the manual does have a lot of good descriptions for all of the different reverb settings and what the variations are. I'll tell you right now, most of the reverb variations on the variations knob are a combination of the pre-delay and the reverb time, and so it's going to increase that with the higher numbers on the variation. On the settings that are more modulation type effects like chorus and flange, that variation knob is going to control the speed. So the manual has some pretty good descriptions of what each of the presets or the settings on the Averb 2 are. One of the more interesting is tape. There's a tape setting on here, and the manual tells us that this program allows you to create more complex patterns that can add a rhythmic quality to the instrument. See, some of the things in here don't make any sense, but it does describe the halls, springs, plate reverbs, the modulation effects, and you do get some little block diagrams in the manual, so it's pretty useful. The manual does explain this. This unit has 256 different effects variations that you can choose from, which is pretty good for the money. I'm going to try this out now on some of these sources. I'm going to start with the chorus reverb setting on variation number 5. And I'm just going to kind of randomly turn this variation knob during these demos, and probably like 4 or 5 at a time, and just stop in random locations so you can get a general idea of what they sound like, rather than doing every variation, which with that many of them is going to take a long time and the video would be super boring. So I'm going to start with vocals on the chorus reverb setting, and I'm going to turn this variation knob a little bit while this is playing so you can hear some of what this sounds like. Heaven, happy endings, something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. That's one of my favorite things about this little Averb 2 is the combination effects. I like the chorus reverb in particular. I've had this unit for a few months already, and I'm not very fond of the tremolo. The Rotary setting's a little better, but I'm gonna skip the tremolo for this demo. Let's go straight for the Rotary, and we'll play the vocals through that. Dreams, heaven, happy endings, something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. The Rotary sounds not bad. Let's see what the Flange sounds like. Dreams, heaven, happy endings, something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. I mean, those are okay, but if you're looking at one of these, you're probably looking for an extra reverb. So let's move on to the reverbs. I like plate 2 in particular. Some of the hall settings are good too, but I'm going to start out with demonstrating plate 2. I'm going to try plate 2 now, because if you're looking at one of these kind of units, you're probably wanting an extra outboard reverb. I mean, this is great because it has some other things like chorus flange and some combinations, but the primary question might be if the reverbs are actually any good. And plate 2 on this I've tried before and it sounds very good, so I'm going to give that a try, and again turn this variation knob while I play some vocals through it. Grace, heaven, happy endings, something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. Like the manual says, when you're using any of these reverb settings, this variation knob is changing the pre-delay and the reverb time. Unfortunately, you can't control the specific amount of pre-delay versus reverb time on this unit, but there are enough variations that I've been able to find something usable when I was testing this out. I'm really curious what this tape setting does, so I'm going to start playing some demos with that tape setting. Same vocal tracks. Let's see what this does.
Dreams have unhappy endings. Something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. It's reaching way out. The fear, it's gone. And there's no way to know why. 'Cause it's too late for that. And I've lost my whole world. It's coming round again. And there's no way to know why.
So the tape setting sounds like it might be changing the EQ of the sound a little bit, and there's a little bit of a very short delay, and then even reverb, more obvious reverb on the higher numbers of variations. So that's really interesting. And the manual basically doesn't give a description of what tape does. It just says it's variations to make things sound good, or whatever it was that I just read a minute ago, but that doesn't make sense. But I guess that could be useful. That's kind of a neat effect. It's a subtle effect, but it does seem to kind of thin out the sound, and then there's that really short delay, and then some reverb. That's a strange one. Let me know what you guys think of the tape setting on this thing in the comments. The hall settings on the Alto Averb 2 are pretty good, just like the plates. In fact, that's the strength of this unit, which is understandable since it's in the name, averb. And so the reverbs on here are really good. So let's go ahead and hear Hall 2.
Something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place
The manual says something about the Hall 2 being a warm kind of a hall sound, and you can definitely hear that kind of warm vibe and that very long hall reverb on the higher variations. It's pretty. Now I'm going to try the combination delay reverb setting, and again starting down here on the lower variations and turning it to different variations as the track plays through it.
dreams have unhappy endings. Something's lost. It's all out of place as I search for a new world where I can find a place that I belong. It's reaching out. The fear is gone.
I like that. The variation knob seems to increase the reverb time and the delay repeats. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to switch it up now, and I'm going to play a guitar solo with strings behind it and put that through the Alto Averb 2 and see what that sounds like. I'm going to use one of my favorite presets for this. I think I'm going to go to plate 1, which is a really good sounding reverb, and put that on this lead guitar. This lead guitar has a univibe on it, so the modulation you're hearing is already on the guitar track. And we're going to use plate 1, go back down here to some of these lower variations and try this out on guitar and strings. So I changed the mix knob on that so you could hear a little bit better blend of the dry and the wet signal there with the reverb. Now for the final test in this video, I'm going to go back to probably my favorite, or the one that I've used the most on this, which is the chorus/reverb. Going to go to kind of a medium setting, and I'm going to play that string part back now through the chorus and the reverb and see what that sounds like. I like that. Obviously the lower variations work better with the slower chorus rate. That works a lot better. You start getting that too fast on something like strings, it sounds a little bit silly. But still very useful. You could use those faster speeds on the higher variations for more of a special effect if you needed something like that. But in this case on strings, I'd probably stick with the lower variations with the slower rate on that chorus. And that really sounds pretty good. I'm pretty impressed, especially with the reverbs on the Alto Averb 2. This is not a bad unit at all. It'd be very useful for having some reverb just to put in someone's headphones for monitoring if you don't want to load down your digital audio workstation with a reverb plugin that uses a lot of CPU. You could use one of these externally and save those CPU resources. It would work great for that, and I think it's definitely good enough to use it in a mix. It worked well on backing vocals, and I really like the chorus reverb setting on variation number 3 or 4 on a background vocal. If you're able to find one of these for a really good price like I did, you know, around $30 to $50, I'd say it's a pretty good buy. They're relatively recent, so it shouldn't have any major problems or anything, and it sounds pretty good. Well, I hope you enjoyed getting to see and hear the Alto Averb 2 40-bit digital effects processor. I also hope that you'll take the time to like this video as well as subscribing to the Twin Creek Audio YouTube channel if you have not done so already. In addition, check all the links in the video description for ways that help support this channel. And as always, I wish every one of you out there a wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, weekday, hour, minute, second, nanosecond. Whatever it is you're having, have a good one. Thanks so much for watching.